Well, hello everybody and welcome to Lunchbreak Live, real talk about obesity, food addiction, recovery, and what's really eating you. On today's show, what are you assuming? Before I get started, I am Carrie Dela Cruz, 2007 gastric bypass post-op, living in recovery from obesity and compulsive overeating as twice the woman in half the body. Welcome. I am really glad that you guys are able to join me today for what I think is going to be a really, really great show. But now that you know me, I want to know who's here. You know how the drill works now. All right, I got some questions. Who's here? Now I know you're going to say, well, I'm here. All right, I know, I got it. But how many of you guys were here for yesterday's show about being offended? I need to know. So it doesn't matter if you were live or on demand. I want to know. So if you were live, comment by leaving me the number 1. And if you watched on demand, comment 2. And if you're watching on demand right now, commenting, you can put a 2. It doesn't matter, okay? So who was here? And Sherry is here. I love it. And Connie, hey, welcome, welcome. And my mama, okay, so Jerry was here yesterday, live, right on. You might have been here on demand yesterday. Okay, so Erin was on demand yesterday, but she is very much live today. Awesome, love it. Fantastic. Kathy, hi, welcome, glad that you are here. This is fantastic. See, it's really good for me to know who's watching. All right. Okay, so now, here's what I want to know. Here's the next part of the question. Did you guys identify with anything that I said yesterday? Like, are you easily offended? I want to know. So go ahead and just shoot me a mad face. If you are easily offended, throw the mad face. I'm seeing hearts from my mama. Hi, Mom. I love you. So again, if you're easily offended, maybe no one's easily offended because I'm not seeing mad faces, but I am seeing Lisa, who was here yesterday, as a 1, and she is very much a 1. So, oh, I see a mad face. All right. I was like, am I the only one that is easily offended? Okay. So there's a few of us out there. You know, it's good. It's good to know this about ourselves, I think, because this is where recovery, lives, right? In knowing stuff about ourselves. All right, you didn't watch yesterday. All right, Sherry, you know your homework, right? Your assignment is to go back and watch yesterday's show. But don't worry, you don't have to have seen yesterday's show in order to enjoy today's show because, you know what? One is not based upon the other. They all work together for good, however. So, sometimes easily offended, says Nancy. Let's see, it takes a lot to seriously offend me, Jerry says. It just happened today, Sherry says. So Jerry was the other one, and I misspoke. And Dorothy, I'm really glad that you're here. And my niece is here. Hi, sweetie. Okay, so she likes the blouse, and I told her to tune in so she could see my earrings. So blouse is brought to you by compliments of my husband, Juan de la Cruz, and he bought it for me in Zacatecas. And the earrings are compliments of me. I bought them. Well, he bought them for me when I was there, but I picked them out. So I'm feeling very Mexicana today. So anyway, I'm glad you're here, sweetie. All right, let's see. So Nancy says, I watched live yesterday, but missed the first part today, so not sure how I should have responded. You already told me what I needed to know. It was a 1. All right. So, and Kathy, welcome in. All right. So, I love the earrings. They look great. Thanks. And I love you too. All right. So I've got a really good show planned for today. I think, anyway. I mean, I'm excited about it. So let's get started. I want to know, what are you assuming? You don't have to answer that yet. Well, first of all, what does it even mean to assume? I think that's important to know. I know everyone loves to say, I'm going to put it out there because you guys are already thinking it. When you assume, you make an ass out of me. I had to say it, whether I believe it or not. And here's the fun fact. Do you guys have any idea where that came from? Anybody want to take a shot at that? Hi, Melissa. Glad that you're here. Let me know. Any idea where that whole, when you assume, you make an ass out of me, where did that come from? Do you hear Jeopardy music? Dun, 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 dun. No looking it up. I'm going to tell you right now. It came from Felix Unger on The Odd Couple in the 60s. It is true. I don't know if you ever knew that. I didn't know it, so I had to look it up. And there you go. So anyway, I'm not going to go there with this show. I'm just not. But I had to put it out there because you guys are thinking it. I have to assume that you're thinking it anyway. And you know how I love to define words, right? Oh, my old boss said it all the time. But I didn't know your old boss, Dorothy, so I can't credit it to him. And Tim, you dig it. Absolutely. Look it up. It's pretty fun. And Rebecca is here. Welcome. All right. So, you know how I love to define words. Okay, that's very, very important because I think I need to understand what it really, really means to assume, because who knows? Maybe I'm assuming that I know what it means, but I really, really don't. So I'm going to assume that you asked. Hi, Eric. All right. Assume is a verb. Of course, it's a doing word. It's an action word. And it usually involves jumping to conclusions. But anyway, assume. Here's the first instance of it. Now, usually, you know that if they have multiple definitions, the first one is the most commonly used. You suppose to be the case without proof. Very important part of assuming. Without proof. Presume, suppose, take for granted, or take it as given. Take as. Also, read. So I'm assuming I'm reading into this. Conjecture, surmise, conclude, deduce, infer, reckon, reason, think, fancy. It's fancy. It's like a flight of fancy sometimes. Believe, understand, gather, and figure. Right? So I assumed he wanted me to keep the book. All right. So, you know, that seems harmless, right? Yeah, harmless to assume. Not so much. Number 2 means to take or begin to have power or responsibility. Really? I bet you never thought of it that way, or maybe you did and you just took it for granted. Synonyms: accept, shoulder, bear, undertake, take on or take up, manage, handle, deal with. They are to assume more responsibility. Okay, so that is another a definition of assume, but I have a feeling most of us, most of the time, when we assume things, are not just assuming responsibility for things. All right? So one of those definitions up there, I'm not going to fill in the blank here, sounds an awful lot like recovery, and one sounds an awful lot like what you and I, okay, I don't have to assume this, all right? A lot of us do it. I'm just going to say that, all right? The other one sounds like recovery, and one that I'm going to talk about right now sounds an awful lot like what we do. So what is wrong with assuming? I know you're asking. You're like, so what's the big deal? All right, well, if we're talking about definition 1, which is the one where we, you know, don't have any proof, but we make a determination, then we are filling in the blanks without any proof that what we're filling in is even correct. I don't think that's a good practice. I don't think it's really a good idea. I don't think it's smart. And yet, isn't that what a lot of us do? So here's a poll question, all right? Again, this is very, oh, thanks, Becca. This is very, very interactive, okay? My show. If you are an assumer, do you attend, now listen to me very carefully, do you tend to assume the best or the worst? Type your answer below, okay? A B for best, W for worst. So if you are an assumer, do you tend to assume the best or the worst? I'm going to wait for your answer because I know what I am, but you'll find out in a minute. All right. And hey, Kathy from Elysian Fields, Texas. All right. So I'm waiting because, you know, there's always a little bit of a lag with Facebook. And all right, worst. So Lisa says she assumes the worst. My mom is thinking. Now, some of you may have responded and it's just not showing up to me yet, and I will see it later. Hey, Sarah, glad you're here. I just asked a question. If you're an assumer, do you tend to assume the best or the worst? So Nancy is like the worst mostly. Dorothy, the worst. Erin says she doesn't really know. Sherry, excuse me, you tend to assume the best. All right, so the worst, I go to the toilet every time. Okay, I know there is something there, and you're going to have to assume I get it. All right, so here's what I want to know. Here's the next thought, all right? If you assume the best, here's what I want to know. Is it more often about yourself or others? So in other words, when you're assuming the best, are you assuming the best about others, or are you assuming the best about yourself? So you could put O or Y. O for others, Y for yourself. All right? Think about that for a minute. All right. If you assume the worst, same answer. Do you tend to more often assume the worst about others or yourself? All right. So others. Kathy assumes about others, whether it's the best or the worst. Others. Yourself. Sherry's saying, okay. Others, Mom says. Okay. Great. Others. So we have an interesting mixture here. Others. Actually, more others are popping up for me. Best of others, worst of myself, I think. Ding, ding, ding. Hey, Aaron, did you see my show notes? Others, and you think the best, Sherry says, the best of others. Okay, this is really, really good stuff, don't you think? Nancy says, well, I usually assume the worst when it comes to what I assume others are thinking of me. Again, did you see my show notes? Deborah, myself, and Kathy, myself. All right. Okay, so this is good stuff. This is good work you guys are doing here, I think. All right. My default setting is to assume the worst. That's my default setting. And interestingly, yes, as you guys pointed out, it is usually about myself, or more accurately, as Nancy said, I assume that what others are thinking about me is the worst. So I assume they are thinking the worst about me. All right. Side note, by the way, and maybe this is for another show, but I think it's a bit self-centered, of me to think that at any given time, everyone is thinking bad things about me. I mean, wow, that's kind of self-centered, right? Or thinking about me at all. And yet I'm thinking, oh yeah, they're definitely thinking the worst about me. But that is definitely a topic for another LBL, but it's worth thinking about. So the point is here, I assume the worst without any proof, so I make this grand leap and absolutely believe it to be true. So I've assumed the worst without any proof. I believe that it's true. Then I react based upon that unproven conclusion. Wow. That does not sound logical, but that's what I do. It's all about me and what you think of me and what I think you think of me and what I don't want you to think of me. This is exhausting and distressing. I don't know about you, but this is like absolutely the antithesis. I knew I was going to hit that word hard today. It is absolutely the antithesis. Hard for a person with a lisp. The opposite of peaceful recovery. Distressing and consuming and, absorbing and bad, negative. I am responding to something that I made up and calling it the indisputable truth. Another lispy word. I'm calling it the indisputable truth, and I made it all up. Wow, you'd think I would think more highly of myself if I'm that brilliant. But no. All right, maybe you are one of the people who assumes the best. And maybe you assume that others are only thinking the best things about you, and you are thinking only the best things about you. There are people out there like that. Now, that's not me. I'm the worst. But a lot of people think that. Oh, yeah, they're thinking the best about me. I think the best about me, okay? So as with assuming the worst, this conclusion that you have is not really based on anything factual. You can't prove it, except it's based on your opinion. And you will react accordingly. So you're going to say, I'm the best. Everybody thinks I'm the best. I'm going to behave as if that's true. Okay, you're going to say, but that's not always a bad thing to have confidence, right? Okay, if it's distorted, if it's not healthy, and if it flies in the face of reason and in the face of facts, or is not based in anything, is not founded in anything, then I assert that it could be unhealthy. All right? Why should I assume any of this matters? I don't know. I lost my place on the paper. Why should I assume that? Yeah, got it. See, this is what happens, by the way. I'm just a little aside. When I allow people to walk into my office 5 minutes before showtime, and I have not printed out my notes so that I could cut them apart. Okay? I was ready to go live, and like I'm shooing people out of my office. Close the door behind you, and I hope it doesn't hit you on the butt on the way out. And I realize I don't even have my notes printed out. Great. So yeah, a rule henceforth, you may not set foot in my office 10 minutes before showtime. All right. Anyway, why should I assume any of this matters? That's where we left off. Well, in my experience, assuming is nothing more than filling in the blanks. Okay, so that's what I said at the top, filling in the blanks. It is a way of controlling what can't be controlled and knowing what isn't known. What do you guys think of that? Filling in the blanks so that I can control what can't be controlled and know what isn't known. All right, if my entire life then is predicated on an unproven truth, an unknown truth, do you think it could be a lie? Does the possibility exist? Now, if you're one of those people that always assumes the best, maybe you're assuming that, no, of course it couldn't be a lie. Well, assuming the worst, yeah, I think it could be a lie. But how would I know if I'm not willing to consider it? That's what this all comes down to. Am I willing to consider the fact that my assumptions are inaccurate at best and unfounded at worst? I have always wanted people to assume good things about me. I've been sharing a lot about that on my wall, and I share a lot about that in my show. I have always wanted people to think good stuff about me. And who wouldn't want that, right? Don't we want to be, valued and revered and stuff? And you know what? I wanted them to assume that I was capable, even though I didn't think I was. I wanted them to assume I had it all together, even though I didn't think I did. And I wanted them to assume I knew the answers, even when I was afraid I didn't. Wow. I mean, that's the reality of it. That's what would go on in my head. If it's left unattended, it will still go there. I didn't think I was capable. That was really the root of all of this. I didn't have it together, and I was terrified that I would not have the answers I needed when I needed them. I assumed I couldn't, didn't, and wouldn't. There's a trifecta for success, don't you think? So, does that sound like someone who believes that she can, lose weight and keep it off? Well, no, because I'm incapable. I don't have it all together. I don't know what I'm supposed to do because I don't have the answers. Does that sound like someone who believes she can treat her compulsive overeating and addictive behavior? I'm answering that one right now. No. And I'm going to assume you guys are saying no right along with me. So, on the other side of the coin, right? What if I'm a person who thinks I do have it all together and don't, is convinced I'm capable, but constantly prove that I'm not, or haven't really even made the effort to prove that I am, and believe that I know everything? Is there room there for recovery? I'm throwing that out there. This is where I believe fearless honesty is required. Fearless honesty. That's why they talk about a fearless moral inventory in Overeaters Anonymous and in AA programs, 12-step programs. You got to take a fearless moral inventory of what's going on. And that requires rigorous honesty, okay? So if you're afraid to ask yourself whether you assume the worst or you assume the best about yourself and others, how can you hope to change? I mean, if you're afraid to even ask the question, you'll never know the answer. Don't assume you know the answers to these questions. You have to be brave and ask them. And then, listen for the answer. Next thought, assuming in general, okay? I have learned that most of the time when I assume things, I am wrong. And I'm not talking about educated guesses here, okay? I'm not talking about deductive or inductive reasoning or logical conclusions. That's not what I'm referring to. I am talking about the impulsive, reflexive, automatic assumptions that I leap to on a regular and daily basis, right? Again, when left unattended, that is where I live. I know what they're thinking. Of course I do. I know how they feel. I know why they're doing that. I know they don't like me. I know they're just jealous. I know they're blaming me. Now look, a lot of people in my past fed that unhealthy assuming for me. As I began my journey as a bariatric post-op, oh boy, I found myself coming up against all sorts of difficulties, especially in the online world. This was an area I was not familiar with, not experienced at coping with, and who did? I mean, really, this was pretty new to a lot of us. And I had people who loved me regularly say, you're having problems with people because they're jealous of you. And I'd say, yeah, that's what it is. They're jealous of me. But somewhere inside, that didn't sit well. I didn't like that. And I think the real reason is, how do I know that? And why does it really matter? Why does it really matter anyway? What matters is what I'm responsible for doing, how I'm responsible for behaving, okay? Not what I think others might be thinking or what other people assume others are thinking, okay? So here's what I want to know. Is any of this familiar to you guys? As I'm just, prattling on, give me a thumbs up if this sounds familiar to anybody else. I may be alone, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I am okay, but I have a feeling I'm not. I have a feeling, And the lag time with Facebook is not going to show me, right? Okay, there we go. Yay. All right, I'm seeing some thumbs up popping up. All right, yeah. So I'm not alone. That's good. Takes courage to admit that, you understand this, cope with this, sounds familiar to you, whatever. Okay, how did I know that? Right. Did the people that I had all of these assumptions about in my past, did they tell me what they were thinking or how they felt? That's number one. No, because I didn't want to know. Ooh, see, that's big. They didn't tell me, but I didn't want to know, so I did not ask because I may not like what I heard. Ooh, I may not have liked it, right? I don't want to hear. I'm not going to ask what they're thinking. It's safer for me to just assume that I know what they're thinking without asking them, because the truth is, what if I don't like what I hear? Okay, so there's that. Did they tell me they don't like me? Well, no, because if I hear that they don't like me, I'll feel worse about myself. See, so this is protective. This is guarding me. These assumptions, right? If I assume the worst, then how could it get any worse? Right? I'm assuming the worst. It won't get any worse. That was my logical conclusion there. But if I hear that they don't like me, I'll feel worse about myself, and I will know that I'm not likable. Okay? I'll know that I'm not likable. How about this in the past? Did they tell me they were jealous? No, they did not. Did they tell me they were blaming me for something? No, because I already blamed myself. And I didn't feel worthy of jealousy anyway. What do they have to be jealous of? Do you see what I'm saying? So again, me assuming the worst about myself and others. All right, how do I correct this? Because that's really what this all comes down to. We could talk about, sickness or, unhealthy thoughts and feelings and behaviors and everything, but what it really comes down to is, can I do something about it? If I identify this as a problem in my life, what can I do about it? How do I correct it? Well, I ask myself more questions, of course. I have a lot of discussions with myself, a lot of conversations. Is it possible, here's the first question, is it possible that the other person is thinking or feeling something good? Well, now there's something I hadn't assumed. This, of course, does assume that I am assuming the worst, okay? So is it possible that the other person is thinking or feeling something bad? This assumes that I'm assuming the best, okay? So you got to find the question that works for you. How does learning what they are thinking or feeling affect me? So again, remember the comment about, oh, they're just jealous. And so even if that were true, even if they said to me, I am jealous of you, what does that do? How does that affect me? I have no control over that. I have no power over that unless it is that I am doing something on purpose to elicit some kind of a response. I want you to be jealous of me. Okay, then that's on me. But if I'm not doing anything, really, other people's feelings are their own feelings, just as our feelings are our own. Okay, I talk about this from time to time on the show, but I lived in a place of fear for most of my life, not because I was threatened at home. And I think this is really important to know. I was not threatened at home. I was very well loved. I felt safe there, but I did draw conclusions at a young age that made me believe that the world was a very scary place. People would hurt me because I can't protect myself, and I would be safe as long as I made them like me. This was the little world that I created, okay? And it was based on fear. So everything that I did was based on being fearful and wanting to be safe and wanting to protect myself. Even if I really didn't know if there was a reason to be afraid. That's what assumption does for you, all right? Fear is a really, really powerful force. I mean, we all agree. It can stop you from wanting to know the truth. It can stop you from believing you can do or be better. And it can stop you from wanting to recover. Fear. Wow, talk about an F word. There is a ton to talk about on that subject, of course, which is why I'm writing a book about it. And may actually, if I stop being afraid to finish it, I may actually finish it one day. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about on the subject of assumption as well. A lot. But this is where I really want to leave it for today, okay? Starting today, here's your homework. I encourage you to change how you use the word assume in your life. I'm going to encourage all of us to refer to definition number 2, which is to take or begin to have power or responsibility for our lives, for our recovery, for our thoughts, for our actions, okay? We want to learn to accept and shoulder and bear and undertake and take on and manage and handle and deal with and face life on life's terms. So I'm going to encourage you that if you're going to assume anything, assume accountability and responsibility. Assume responsibility for your recovery, basically, okay? Manage your responses to circumstances and situations. In other words, do not react, especially not based on something that you don't even know. Manage your responses, which means assume responsibility for your reactions, your responses, what you do in any given circumstance or situation. Handle negativity through honesty. Stare it straight in the face and say, what is the evidence of this? Where is the truth in this? Can I handle the truth? I may not like the truth. Can I live through it? Can I survive it? Yeah. Will I be happy about it? Not necessarily, but I won't know if I don't know. Deal with it and do not deny reality. Oh, and embrace joy and have the courage to do the work. See, that's a really good idea, don't you think? I'm going to assume that you agree with me. So here's the job I have for you. I'm going to assume that you are all going to do it because you're very, very committed to your recoveries, okay? After the show, you ready? This is your actual physical got-to-do-it homework. The other part is work in progress. This is stuff that you're going to continue to do on a daily basis. This is what I want you to do today. Do it for me if you don't do it for yourself. Leave me a comment with something you have always assumed to be true, but now know is false. Or tell me something you always assumed was false, but learned is true. I'll give you some examples. Ready? I know it's challenging. Maybe you assumed you couldn't live without a certain food, and then you learned that that was really a lie. Maybe you assumed you didn't weigh as much as you do, and then you learned the reality. Maybe you assumed someone didn't like you, and then you learned differently. Really? I always thought you didn't like me. Maybe you assumed you knew how your partner felt about something and learned they feel an entirely different way. I thought, you didn't like that, and now I find out you do like this. Or, gee, I always thought you liked that, and now I find out you don't. Okay? That is your homework. And I hope you assume the challenge. See what I did there? All right, you guys, that is it. I could just go on and on and on, but I can't because it's nearly the top of the hour. Time flies when you're having fun. So listen, I will go back and see the amazing things that you are writing to me right now. And I will also look for your responses to the homework that I just asked you about right now. Okay? Please let me know if you learned that something you thought was true wasn't, or something you always thought wasn't true is. Okay? Put that for me. Because remember, when we share this stuff, others can learn from it too. So, I'm going to sign off right now, and I'm going to remind you all to have courage. We need a lot of it with this show. Seek peace. Trust me, peace lives when we don't assume stuff, okay? That's what the goal is here. Seek peace, embrace joy, and above all, assume responsibility for your recovery. Remember, you can't stop feeding what's eating you. If you don't know what's eating you, I will see you guys tomorrow. I promise. Take care. Bye.